All right, so I'd like to introduce to everybody our next few speakers that will be joining us for this fireside chat. We have Michael Weiner, who's the director with Ernst & Young Assist, Allison Stark, who's Global Wellness Program Manager for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and Charles Leverton, Global Director, Healthiest Company Initiative for Initiative Center of Excellence for Nike. Sorry, that video shook me up a little bit. Let's get started. So, Mike, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you. The first question we have is, can you tell us about EY's initiative in mental health regarding EY Assist and the We Care initiative?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And so at Ernst & Young, we've had an employee assistance program for over 40 years. And one of the longest running EAP programs in the country. We're really proud of it. It started as a traditional employee assistance program with no cost counseling services, and it's still continuing today, but it has grown significantly in breadth and scope and has evolved over time to meet the needs of our people. So it's expanded to include, in addition to the counseling benefits, to include work-life services, so support for child care, for adult care, for elder care, even pet care, where we provide comprehensive research and referral services to help our people find whatever resource would be a good fit for them. And then in addition to that, we also have support and services to help with household chores. Our people at EY work long days, they work really hard, and we want to make sure that they have whatever it is that they need to help them with their personal well-being. And so help with household chores can also be of significant assistance with them. And also research and referrals for daily life services and even some fun stuff like vacation planning and party planning services. So we don't pay for people's vacations, but we help with research and referrals with whatever life may throw at them, whether it's a mental health issue or it's a fun celebration. So to help put some more time back in our people's days. So that's the brief snapshot of the employee assistance program and work-life program that we have in place. But in addition to that, we launched a campaign to address the stigma of mental illness and addictions in the workplace. And we launched that campaign. It's now entering our third year. We launched the campaign in October 2016. And we recognize that despite a broader array of services at EY, to promote our people's well-being and health and mental health, that the stigma for mental illness and addictions still remain. So we addressed a campaign, promoted a campaign to help people recognize the signs when someone's struggling, and they could be struggling with a mental illness, addiction, or a significant personal issue. They could have financial issues, they could be a primary caregiver of someone, and all of that over time can take a toll on someone. So our campaign has been created, one, to help our people understand the signs when someone is struggling and how to engage the person in a conversation, express your caring for the individual, and to be able to ask them and feel comfortable and confident that you can ask them, is everything okay? I notice a change in how you're doing. And then to be able to connect them with appropriate resources, which to us, we recommend that people connect them to the employee assistance program, which we brand as EY Assist. We are not asking our people, we don't want our people to become a therapist for their colleagues. We want to connect them to the EAP program. And we've now, again, entering our third year, and very excited that our leadership continues to support the program. Very briefly, just to wrap up, there's three core components to the program I want to share. We have on-site learning events where we play some videos, people sharing their personal stories, and then we have discussions around connecting around the stigma of mental illness and addictions in the workplace. And so we have learning events, we have online materials that we have promoted to our people on a variety of topics related to mental illness and addictions. And then we've also created an in-depth virtual e-learning so people that are interested in having a better understanding of the signs that someone's struggling and how to respond to them, that they can access that as well. So those are the three components of the program.
Those are great tools, and I've been so impressed with EY's program since you published an article in our magazine over 3 years ago about Are You Okay, being kind of the start to just checking in on people, and then just having those extra resources are just so valuable for employees that are looking to make a difference. Allison or Charles, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Michael.
I just wanted to clarify, and thank you for mentioning that. Our program started as Are You Okay, as you mentioned. We've actually expanded the program and rebranded it. And we've expanded the program to go beyond mental illness and addictions because we recognize, as I mentioned, somebody could have a significant financial issue. It could affect their stress, their sleep. They could be a caregiver. And if they don't have the right supports in place, it can have a significant toll on the individual. So we've rebranded our program as We Care. So just to clarify, that's a change in place. So I just wanted to share that as well. So thank you.
Yeah, you have come a long way, just expanding the program and going beyond just mental health, because I do think a lot of things affect our mental health. Allison or Charles, would you like to kind of interject here on this?
Sure, I would say definitely for organizations that are looking to move into this space, it truly is more than mental health. And when people say mental health, you're thinking stress, anxiety, depression. But like Michael was saying, you know, if you take a broader look at this and you really call it behavioral health, all of these different components outside of stress, anxiety, and depression come into play, like the sleeping issues, parenting challenges, financial issues, and all of that. So, you know, I would definitely encourage people, if they're looking to move into this space, to even open it up more broadly than just mental health, because there's so many environmental factors and relationship factors that go into that as well.
Charles or Dr. Dowd?
Yeah, I would say, go ahead, Dr. Dowd.
Go ahead, Charles, all yours.
I would say the same thing. I mean, you know, the way that we think about it is it's on a continuum of self-intervention to professional intervention, and we really think of it as a system solution. And so we approach it through the idea of there are things that you can do to maintain your mental health, just like your physical health every day. And then there are other times when you're going to need professional help to get you over a barrier or over an issue. And it's a continuum where you'll constantly move back and forth between it as you're seeking towards what we call performance or optimization.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, we call ourselves a pharmacogenetic testing company, and people immediately will think, well, that means medications, right? Throw a medication at everything. You're feeling a little down, here's your Prozac. But that is by no means what we try to do. I mean, we've consulted with thousands of providers over the last, 4 or 5 years while we've been in business. And we spend half the time talking about things like exercise, things like B vitamins, things like diet. And so your genes actually impact that also. You know, some people are genetically more likely to respond to exercise, and it acts like medication more so in them than in others. So I agree 100%. It's a whole mind-body approach to this.
Right. Well, thank you guys. Another question, and this one's for you, Charles. How do you feel that programs help employees change behavior? How do you feel programs that help employees change behavior can be rolled out successfully, given your experience at Nike?
I think sometimes we complicate the conversation too much, and we forget that there's a lot of precedents already in our society. And so when you think about any adoption or adherence to a program, it exists today. So you adhere to your iPhone being in your hand every day. And so how did they get us to adopt that? And so part of it is making it a daily use conversation. And so one of the ways that we approach it is we look at the things that you use daily and then amplify the message of health through those, rather than having it be a separate ecosystem outside of that conversation. So our food, our fitness, and our employee conversation, so our leaders talking to our employees, have this immersive feel to it, rather than a moment in time approach.
That's excellent. Michael or Allison, Dr. Dowd?
I think another thing to mention, I agree, it's not a moment in time approach. It's something that needs to be constantly presented to employees, because they may hear about it at one point in time when they're not needing those types of resources, and 6 months down the line they find themselves, in a situation where that would be helpful, and by then they've forgotten about it. So consistency is really key. I also think trying to reach people in some creative ways, maybe not just presenting them with written material that they need to read, but one thing we've done recently is rolled out podcasts that feature topics around behavioral health. And so just trying to engage people in new and different ways to get the message out.
Exactly, and also just regular promotion, because when people need the benefit, they will often have to hunt for it because they may have just learned about it during, let's say, open enrollment or when they first joined the firm or company. And so we are also building a platform to make it very easy for people to find the benefits. And we are directing people to this platform with some intelligence built into it to help people find the resources that they need. Because we've had in the past information located in multiple locations. So having a single place where people just know to access anything benefit related, I go here, and without having to think through, well, where is it? So that's something that we're very excited about, and we're in the process of launching. The other thing that I just want to mention as well that's very helpful is that as part of the traditional EAP benefit, we also encourage our people, if you're concerned about someone and you're not sure how to help, you can call the EAP and they can give you some guidance about how to connect with someone that you're concerned about and to direct them for resources. So that's another way that we've also been promoting mental health and wellness within the workplace.
Yeah, I just want to make one last quick point, if that's okay. I think one of the keys to success for us was the identification of leveraging everyone's knowledge. And so we have a global benefits team that really does a great job in providing best-in-class health options and what I call professional intervention, as well as our EAP. And then what we did is we married that to our services team across our 300 locations globally and 73,000 employees, and really brought them together as one ecosystem, which really was the profound difference for us in making sure that our employees had daily immersion.
Yeah, I'll just echo these sentiments about repetition, and consistency. We tend to feel like we don't want to bother people anymore, and we find this with some of our providers, right? I talked to them last week. I don't need to bother them again. But if there's one thing we learned, you need to say this 3, 4, 5, 10 times before it really starts to become a pattern.
And that's so true. I think we can hear things once or twice and then forget about it. And I also really enjoyed the fact that you mentioned, or that was mentioned, that if you have somebody that you're concerned about, you can use the EAP, because I think, as we live and breathe at work, and we're here, sometimes more hours during the day than we are at home, these people that we work with are our family. And if you notice there's something wrong and you don't know how to address it, I like the idea of also communicating that it's there to help them figure out what might be their next step. So great points everybody made on that. That's great. I'd like to move on to our next question, if I may. This one's for Allison. Tell us about HPEs initiatives in mental health and precisely how you developed your behavioral health council.
Yeah, so 2 key reasons we started looking at behavioral health to begin with several years back was really to continue to broaden our commitment to employee well-being. For many years, we've had a wellness program in place that we call Winning with Wellness, with a focus on physical health, financial health, stress management, and resiliency, which I think is fairly common across organizations now, but also to address our healthcare claims cost. But equally as important, or perhaps maybe even more important, is that we really wanted to bring innovation to this space. So what we started with was we created a behavioral health council, and we chartered it to look at our specific population and develop ideas that could really make a difference for our employees. And so we put together this council that represents a cross-section of clinicians from some of our vendor partners. Of course, it includes EAP representatives. We got HR involved, as well as our inclusion and diversity team. So a broad group of people to bring different perspectives to this topic and kind of lend their expertise to what their programs can offer, where their roadmap is going, and really ultimately, to use their expertise, but to also push our vendor partners to really drive innovation in this particular space. So out of a collaboration with our Behavioral Health Council, we created our behavioral health campaign, which is called For Real Life. And it's really meant to be an approachable way to present behavioral health issues to employees. It's part of your real life. And, we wanted to convey to people that you don't have to be having a catastrophic problem to need help. You could just be having a rough day, and some, support resources would, really help you out with that. So the tone of our campaign, the imagery that we use with our campaign is meant to be approachable and relatable. And that's something we've spent a lot of time developing. So we piloted our campaign last year in the US, and it was very successful. So we actually just launched our campaign globally yesterday. So this call is very timely. I'm really excited to track the progress of how this rolls out with the global environment, because of course there's different considerations when you're looking at a global audience. Things are perceived differently. Things need to be presented differently. Certain images resonate in some places versus others. And so one thing that we did to try and hone in on that and make sure we were adapting to country specific or region specific requirements is we hosted a global focus group where we invited, it was virtual, but we invited employees and people leaders from all over the globe to come in and test, chime in on some of the ideas we wanted to test on how we wanted to present things and how we wanted to, what images we wanted to use, and really to try and understand the prevalence of what the top concerns were in these various locations. And that was incredibly helpful in helping us tailor our US campaign to a broader global launch. So that's been something I'm really excited to see how it turns out, but we're off to a good start. I feel good about it.
That's awesome, Allison. And you had mentioned previously about the program that you also had provided like some grand opening with Michael Phelps speaking, as well as some other things that you guys did in your initiatives. Can you tell us a little bit?
Sure. So one component of our campaign that we piloted last year in the US was we made available a documentary film called Angst. It's produced by a company called IndieFlix. And if you haven't seen the documentary, I'd highly recommend you check it out. It's a documentary about anxiety, how to identify it in people, and then immediate ways that you can take away from the film to help you cope with those issues. And the documentary is told through the eyes of younger adults, but also includes discussions with clinicians. And Jenny, to your point, this is where Michael Phelps comes in. He actually has a feature in the film and is, has been candid publicly, but also as part of this film about his struggles with behavioral health. And so it's really powerful to see, that commentary coming from a, world-renowned Olympian who's struggling with issues that each of us do on a daily basis. So we made that film available to employees to watch on their own through, group meetings if they wanted. And then we also hosted a couple of larger screenings at some of our bigger locations where we filmed the screen for employees, and then we had a expert panel of clinicians available afterwards for a Q&A. And overall, I would just say we got tons of traction on that video, lots of positive commentary. And with our launch yesterday, we've made it available globally. So hopefully the trend will continue, but it's a fantastic film, gives lots of tips and pointers about starting conversations, talking to your kids, talking to your peers. So definitely something to check out.
Well, just two really awesome things that you've done, both with the Behavioral Health Council and bringing in professionals, as well as, several different creative ways to roll it out. So kudos to you and really all of you. Please, if, Charles or Dr. Dowd or Mike would like to bring up some of the other things you're doing in that space. I'd love to hear about it.
Allison, I'm glad you mentioned anxiety. It's the number one reason people get our tests. It's the number one mental health care condition, and it often gets overlooked. Anxiety is part of the human condition, and people tend to ignore it. They just think it's natural to be overly anxious, and it is a true, real mental health condition. And I usually call it the gateway to a lot of these other mental health conditions, because very often you'll see anxiety living with depression and anxiety living with ADHD. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. It is such an important topic.
Charles or Michael?
Well, so just a few things to share with that. So when I mentioned the program that we created, I think we actually went through a similar process for our campaign to address the mental stigma of mental illness and addictions in the workplace. We didn't call it something as fancy as a council. We got people together, although I love that. We got people together from different areas of EY, from our business areas, from our HR areas, our legal team, and communications team, and together we built the campaign, and that served multiple purposes. It actually allowed us to get the buy-in very early from multiple areas of the firm, and it allowed what we believe the program to be very, very successful in its launch. And the other piece that's critical, and Allison, it sounds like that you've done this as well, is to get the buy-in from leadership at the very beginning. That was, I would say, probably paramount to having the success of the campaign. So that sounds like that was also done, because you've got a global launch that's occurring, so that's fabulous.
I've seen some of EY's materials, and they are so powerful. And I think what resonated with your program and has been an inspiration to me for creating our program is that, it's not just about leadership talking about it. I think where you move the needle is when leadership shares their personal story, because then you've given employees permission to talk and to be okay with not being okay. And I will say culturally, we're not there yet, but we're a newer organization. We're moving in that direction. We do have executive support, but we're not, to that personal level yet. And I think that's when it changes everything. So.
Yes, and just to mention, so first of all, when we have our on-site learning events, we require a leader to kick off the event by sharing how they've been impacted personally and why it's professionally important to them. But in terms of sharing stories, so EY loves to collect data, and we when we do communications, we check on how many clicks there are to various communications, and that's actually helped shape a variety of initiatives. And one of the communications that we did was about 2 years ago. We had somebody, not a leader, but somebody at the firm shared how they have been impacted by depression. And that communication generated more hits than any other communication of the EAP program in years.
I believe that.
And because we love data, we also were able to tie that communication that month led to a spike in calls to the employee assistance program the very same month.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned substance use, and I'm glad you brought that up. Whenever you hear the term substance abuse, everybody immediately thinks opioids, but alcohol abuse is far more common than opioid abuse, and it's a huge cost burden. The reason I bring it up, and I'd like some of the other employers to know, part of what we screen for in our testing is treatment response for alcohol abuse. Which medications may be more or less likely to help you remain alcohol free with certain medications. So thanks for bringing it up. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and we actually, as I said, we love data, and we looked at the usage of our employee assistance program over time, what were the issues that people were calling about. It's all de-identified, as well as hits to our website, EAP website, to see what materials were people gravitating to. And we noticed that while there had been an increase in calls to the EAP program, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, we did not see the same kind of increase for people seeking support for addictions. And that actually helped us in understanding the need to shift some of our materials and focus some of our events. And we began to partner with some organizations to have discussions specifically around addictions, because we recognize that the stigma for addictions was that much more stronger and powerful than for mental health issues. Right. So that's as well.
That's fascinating. And it is interesting that you're able to extrapolate that data and then really hone in on where proactively you should be concerned with your program. So, and I think other employers can follow suit when they understand kind of a large population. And generally speaking, you've looked at a lot of data over a course of time, and so it's easy for them to sort of think, okay, these are kind of ways that we can also implement steps to overcoming this stigma by utilizing our EAP and partnering with our wellness partner to create better education. So all really great stuff. I appreciate everybody bringing it all up. Charles, did you want to add anything to this before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that I would add is, again, the power of democratization. What we found was the most passionate stories, the most real stories were coming from the employees themselves. And when I say employees, it was leaders as an employee. So rather than saying I'm responsible for this function or this type of work, it was a leader in, for example, a category or from another part of the business that said, hey, this is a personal story to me. I'm really passionate. I want to help my team and others. And they took their own free time to build it. And so what we really focus on is systems by which they can have a voice. And so we really spend a lot of time, rather than implementing it for them, which we have a great EAP program that does that, but also allowing them to self-advocate and self-participate in the ecosystem. And so, for example, we ran a large mindset conference last October that was all employee-led. So it was 100% volunteer-led. We had over 1,000 employees participate the entire day. And it was a massive event. And it was not centrally sponsored, but rather just focused. And we created a framework by which they can self-advocate.
That's brilliant. Really good stuff. Well, everybody, thanks for that. I have another question here. This one's for you, Dr. Dowd. What is the value of a science-based approach, such as the use of pharmacogenomics and genomics, to improve the accuracy of health-based programs?
So 3 things come to mind. First thing, we'll probably just echo kind of what I said in my presentation before. If we can identify medications that are more likely to be tolerable and safer for patients, and at the same time we can reduce costs, then the benefit is obvious there. Remember that we did that Aetna research where we showed that we could have about a $2,000 decrease in costs testing versus not testing. So that's what immediately comes to mind. One of the other things, just thinking about the value of this type of testing, it's testing that you'll have with you for a lifetime. Your genes don't change now from when you're 105 years old. So they are what they are. Testing is one and done. So you do this testing once, and the cost of that is spread over a lifetime. If you find out now that you're a poor metabolizer for a certain antidepressant, well, that could impact your blood pressure medications and your blood thinners and your antacids down the road. So there's real value to it because it's one and done. Spread that cost over a lifetime. And then the last thing I want to mention goes towards stigma. So certainly there's still a stigma in mental health care. And some of the feedback we get from our patients is that when they got tested, it helped remove some of the stigma. So when we hear stigma, we tend to think of stigma associated with a diagnosis. But there's also a stigma with failing a medication. Patients will say, well, must be something wrong with me. Medication didn't work for me. I must be broken. Or, there's a stigma to that. What's wrong with me? And then when we can present them some type of physiological parameter explaining why they may have failed a medication, it validates what they've experienced with these meds in the past. And keep in mind, at least half of the people fail their first antidepressant or their first anti-anxiety medication. So it helps validate what they've experienced in the past, remove some of that treatment failure stigma. So those are 3 things that come to mind.
Yeah, and when I looked at your stats on the millions of prescriptions that are being, being given out per year, that kind of failure rate makes you think this should kind of be the norm. I know that Charles was talking about how things, the ebb and flow of things eventually become the norm. And Charles, you had talked about a story of LeBron James. You gave an analogy, but I'd love to talk about, kind of the future of health and how things, come to play over time and in what you saw there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world continues to get more educated in health in general, and it used to be the luxury of a few to have the knowledge. And now it's, it's a little bit like reading and writing back, the invention of the printing press, where now the ability to know yourself, the ability to understand how your body works is no longer an expensive proposition, but it's starting to become commonplace and almost a demand or inherent right for humans. And so, in the sports space, we see that where 20 years ago, an athlete would consider themselves a basketball player only, or a runner only. And today, you can hear greats like Alberto Salazar, who's won multiple global marathons and one of the best runners ever and arguably the best running coach ever, talk about the importance of mindfulness and meditation. And he actually says he had made a choice between running and meditating. He would choose meditating over running because he believes it's a greater indicator of health. But when you talk about great athletes like LeBron, for example, and you see him stretching and recovering before and after a game, you see the value of mindset and meditation, both on the self-intervention side and the professional intervention side, the predominance of professional psychiatrists now in sport, not just at the elite level, but at the high school level. And so all of that points back to one thing, is that the consumer is more informed than they've ever been. It's less art, more science as we progress through history. And our solutions are going from what I call a one-to-many solution, which is a generic guess on what a population needs, to a one-to-few or one-to-one solution where we know exactly what your body needs to succeed.
Right. I love that analogy. So thanks. Does anybody have any commentary here on kind of the future of where we're going with health literacy?
Well, I think in addition to the evolving space in terms of genetics and mental health, it's very exciting work that's being done. There's also the advent and rapid production of digital health solutions that rival what has been traditional mental health care for about a century, which is you meet with a therapist face to face. And so the landscape of products and services, like we heard from Dan, that is rapidly evolving. And so while it's a wonderful thing, it can be a bit overwhelming for employers to choose what are the right services. It can also be challenging for consumers looking to purchase, let's say, what's the right app for them. Charles, you mentioned mindfulness. I mean, that's such a powerful tool that people can use for their emotional well-being. And there are lots of apps out there. Some are great. Some have tremendous outcome data that's very powerful, and some maybe not so much. But so there's a lot out there. So we'll maybe a future discussion can be, how do we help employers figure out what's the right scope of products that's rapidly changing? Because once you make a decision today, within 6 months, there's a newer and more innovative, maybe even a better product out there. So it's unlike any other time I've seen in mental health care.
Jenny, when we started this company 10 years ago, one of our worries was, are patients going to give us their DNA? Are they going to do this? Are they going to be willing to give us that information? And now that is the least of our concerns, because patients are overwhelmingly supportive of this type of testing. They want to be the masters of their own destiny. They are far more educated than they've ever been about medications and healthcare than ever before. They want this information. They want to use it. And I think that's just going to become amplified over the years.
Right, and I think I have to agree too with both what you've just said, Dr. Dowd, and also what Michael mentioned, and that is, there are so many rapid things coming at us at once that it's imperative to, get ready, understand, we have one gene, let's figure out that gene, let's figure out what, as we move forward, what do those genes, no, we don't have one gene, but we have, one set of genes, and that's the way they are, and they are our genes. And what does that look like in 10 years as far as advancements in medicine? Will there be a genetic test that says, you are predestined or propensed to anxiety or ADHD? Can you get a diagnosis from your genes? Probably down the road. But my point is I think it's interesting, and I do think another topic most definitely needs to be around what are those kinds of things out there. I mean, Michael, you mentioned your algorithm app that you're giving to your employees, or platform where they can get all the information about their programs, not just the EAP program, but everything that you're offering within healthcare. And that's so critical for an employee to have a one-stop shop for everything that they have offered. And I think, that's brilliant. So really great stuff. Before we move on to the next question, I actually have a polling question to engage our audience. So I am going to advance the slide once, if I can. Here we go. So first polling question for our audience. Would you be interested in learning more about pharmacogenomics for mental health as it relates to employees or employer clients? First answer, yes, maybe, but I need more information. We're already using this option, or no. So would love to have you participate, and we'll start the poll now. Just a couple seconds. Let's get the audience involved with the questions. And we're going, let's just see, we have people answering the questions as we speak. So interestingly enough, looks like a good portion of you are interested or would like to learn more than 50% in that category. 2, you're already using it, that 2%, that's awesome. We'd love to know what else you're doing innovative, because if you're doing this, you're probably doing some other things. And then a few others are not interested yet. So I think that that's a really good sign of what's to come in as far as advancements are concerned. And using tools that are available to participants is so important. So thank you guys for answering those questions for us. And we have one more question for the team. We'll start with you, Michael. How has EY seen the stigma surrounding mental health change for your employees? And are you seeing some of those barriers come down? And second part of the question is, are you seeing an increase in utilization of the resources you offer?
So we're seeing, and let me just also clarify, the population at Ernst & Young is skewed relatively young. We have a lot of young professionals recently out of college and grad school. So I'm not sure how much of this is tied to our initiatives versus that maybe this is a trend that we're seeing across the country, which is people are talking about their mental health more. We're definitely encouraging people to bring their whole self to work, to talk about their health, their mental health, and be able to share whatever is they're comfortable sharing. And that's part of our campaign as well. So people are talking about their mental health at work and their well-being and wellness. So we're seeing more conversations occurring related to that. And with the launch of the anti-stigma campaign, that was October 2016, we have seen and tied to that month an increase in our employee assistance program utilization that has been sustained because we've been doing regular promotions. We've also talked about how important it is just to not just do a one and done, but sustain promotions. We have seen an increase. The first year was about a 30% increase. The second year was approaching a 40% increase. We're now entering our third year, and we have about a 44% increase in our EAP utilization since we launched the campaign. And I also want to mention at EY, we have a hybrid employee assistance program. We have an internal EAP with a few mental health clinicians internally, and then we have a vendor that manages an 800 number, 24-hour service, and they handle the majority of the calls. When we sliced our data, separating the internal EAP versus the external EAP, we noticed the internal team had 106%, well, also we felt this, 106% increase in utilization of services, with the vast majority of the referrals into the internal employee assistance program was from our HR professionals. And that's something that I just want to briefly mention as well, that having training specifically for HR professionals, I think was a very, very powerful tool to promote the EAP utilization, because they have a window into how people are doing. And one of the windows that they have is if somebody's performance is beginning to decline. Solid performers starting to have a drop in performance. Part of the training that we do for HR professionals is to say, we have to have those performance discussions, but we should also ask the question, is everything okay? We notice a change in your performance. And that question alone has generated a number of referrals from HR professionals, because they then uncover when someone shares, yeah, I'm going through something, and then we connect them with resources.
And I think just giving people the benefit of the doubt and allowing them the opportunity to talk about it saves a lot more than just saying, well, your performance is poor and let's get that up. And if they can't, then having to replace that employee, the cost of that is far greater than being able to help them through the situation they're going through and then help them back to get on track, not just with their job, but their life. So that's
Exactly.
Phenomenal. Really great stuff. Anybody else on seeing the stigma surrounding mental health change, for your employees, or breaking down those barriers, or increase in utilization?
I think at HP, we've already had pretty strong utilization. So, and again, we only launched our US campaign last September. So I think it may be too premature right now to kind of assess that. I think we've seen a shift in the types of reasons people are reaching out to the EAP, which is interesting. And I'd like to kind of see how that develops over time as well. So, it's a hard thing to measure for sure. Outside of EAP utilization, I get the question all the time, how do you measure success? And so much of it, you can't, because you may be helping somebody and you may never know about it because it's all happening behind the scenes. It's really when those personal stories come forward and they're people that are brave enough to stand up and share their anecdotal situation is when you've touched somebody, you've reached somebody, but you can't make that happen. It just happens organically. So this area is, it's challenging to measure, and I'm always looking for ideas from others on what they're doing to really assess whether they're getting value or not.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's more around how does it feel, like when we think about our campus and our global campuses. Is it common language? Is it common knowledge? Or is it something that still feels on the fringes? And I think for us, at least, it feels like it's part of our daily discussion and our daily lives, and it's something that's accepted and something that's openly discussed. And so the trend for me is to be, I speak a little bit of business terms on the CAGR of health. And so what we want to do is have a positive increase every year, get better this year than we were last year, rather than try to reach targets.
There's no doubt that stigma is decreasing, and with some new research that's coming out, I expect it to decrease even further. People don't treat mental health as a physiological condition. And I mentioned earlier, there is no depression gene and there is no ADH gene, but there are clusters of dozens or hundreds of genes that one day will be able to predict with some level of certainty your 70% more likely to have bipolar, you're 70% more likely to have ADHD. And once we're better able to predict these conditions and obviously tying it to your environmental conditions also, then you won't be able to argue that this is a character flaw or just some type of weakness. It's a true physiological condition. So it'll continue to get better.
Wow. Well, and any final words from any of you before we move on? This
Thanks,
has just
Jenny.
been so great. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I just want to say thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thanks for
It's our
letting us be a
pleasure.
part of this discussion. This was great.
It's our pleasure, and really we can't do educational sessions like this for our constituents without the powerful participation of you guys and your step-by-step kind of plans and how you've launched some of the things you've done. Give every employer and every broker the opportunity to help manage programs much better. So your thought capital, your thought leadership is so valuable. And I just really want to thank all of you today for being a part of this, taking time out to prepare for it. It takes a little time to coordinate everybody's schedules, especially across the different time zones. And so I really appreciate every one of you participating today, and would really just love to have you back on another discussion about the future of apps or platforms or things like that. So thanks again for all of your participation and for everything that you've done. I want to thank Genomind as well for helping sponsor this and help it make it happen. And so thank you all.